Am I good to go? No, not yet.
Yes, we're ready to go. Hello, good evening, good
Right.
morning, wherever you are in the world. So we're reporting at the moment from Yoga, Healing and Spirituality Room, and we are ready for a Yogic Contemplation presentation by Shiv Talwar. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Shiv, and take us through the presentation for today.
Thank you, Alina, and thank you and the organization for giving me this opportunity of making a presentation talking about our work. Our work is, uh, let me talk about the organization. It's called Spiritual Heritage Education Network. And we have an inclusive vision. We want to develop education, spiritual heritage of humanity that will encompass the whole globe, excluding none. And because we are in education, we are looking at spirituality as a spiritual science, and that is how our research shows that underneath the various religions, there is a wisdom which is the same. And that spiritual wisdom, when you combine it with science, it becomes spiritual science. It can be taught just like science can be taught in a very coherent way. And the, the topic today is role of yoga in teaching unity in diversity. Teaching of unity and diversity is pointless if it is not lived. Uh, so to embody unity in diversity, you need to contemplate. And how that yogic system of contemplation is scientific in its nature and how it transforms everyone, okay, without challenging their faith. So it is not that yoga converts you to anything. It just makes you more spiritual. Spirituality, we take it as meaning connection with all existence. Uh, so I'll go to the next slide. What is it that prevents humanity from living a life in peace and harmony? It's a very age-old question. It has been considered by our prophets, sages, and seers, and philosophers throughout the times. Religions were meant to answer this question, but because of these instincts with which we are born, they keep us divided. We are born to survive, sustain life, and propagate our species. I'm talking of all kinds of life forms. They are programmed to survive and propagate the species and sustain life as long as they're alive. And these are called survival instincts, and they keep us in a divisive mode. We compete to survive, we compete for the resources to sustain life, and that we get focused on the propagation of the species, and they keep us running around like chickens with their necks cut off. Uh, they are integral part of our genetic memory. That's how we get them, okay? And we'll talk about how they originate later on. They work unconsciously without any awareness, and they steal our life driving our behavior lifelong. If we look at instincts and creatures, there are two instincts with which they are born: survival and sustenance. They must save their life if there is a threat to life. And if they live, they must sustain their body with some kind of food, and then to procreate, to keep the species going. So these things are built in all creatures, and they work unconsciously. Okay? These survival, sustenance, and procreation, they work unconsciously. We cannot do much about them. They control us rather than we controlling them. And if we go from creatures to animals, one more is added, and that is identity. They have what we call herd identity in the animals. So they are safer in a herd, and that is subconscious. Okay? Survival, procreation, sustenance is unconscious, these three of them, and identity, herd identity, is a subconscious um, instinct. And when we come to human beings, there are two more added: love and belonging. We are social people. We need to belong to our community, and we need to be loved, and we want to love others. And most of the time, that love and belonging is conditional. We belong to a community, not to all communities. And we love a person, but not all persons. We love ourselves, we love our family, we love our wives, and so on and so forth. But as far as the other is concerned, no, they are the others. Okay? Then there is a possibility amongst humans of unconditional love. Okay? So these four differentiate. The lower four differentiate. Unconditional love is the state of non-differentiation. These two work unconsciously through the senses. We have five senses of perception and five senses of action. And that is what the procreation, sustenance, and survival instincts work, and they work unconsciously. Okay, the experience of unconscious instincts, they creep up on us unconsciously, but instinctive life leaves us with some experience, and we gather that experience and become our ego. So you can say ego is a faculty of the mind, which is a subconscious faculty, and it is the result of our sensory life. And then we have intellect. Love and belonging is the result of our intellect. When we perceive who we are, we become self-aware, we become conscious of our family, become conscious of our community, and we want to belong to our community. We want to live according to their norms. So that is intellect. And then when we go beyond intellect to feel the spirit, then we move from intellect, which is divisive, to mystery of the spirit, that's where we see wisdom of our total oneness, which is based upon a state of non-differentiation. But the state of non-differentiation that we can be in a state of contemplation, we can be in a state of non-differentiation, okay? But when we come back to normal life, we are again in the grip of the lower four instincts. In this slide, what I have is essentially the same as the previous slide as far as the listing of the instincts is concerned and the faculties of the mind through which they work. Procreation, survival, sustenance works through our five senses. Ego, herd identity works through the ego. It is the brainchild of our sensory experience. And then beyond ego, we have our intellect, which is rational, which still discriminates between me and mine and the others. And then once we go through that, we go beyond it, then we see it's not only some people that are mine, but the whole universe is mine. I am a spirit in a body. And once I realize that I'm a spirit in a body, that spirit is in my body and it's also in your body, and it's also in a tree and in water and in rocks everywhere else. And that is when I contemplate, I get there. Okay, this is the result of contemplative experience. How do I contemplate? This is what I'm trying to show here in this slide. What is contemplation? We humans can live in one of four states. Three states are natural. Waking state is natural, okay? In the waking state, all our senses are active, ego is active, intellect is active, but this is not active. I would say probably not. We may have a feeling of oneness. It may come and go, but it's not a feeling that stays. So you can say all are active to some extent or the other in waking state. It's a natural state. We all wake up after we sleep at night. But when we go to sleep, let's say the sleep is sound. When the sleep is sound, our senses are, our body is sleeping and our senses are sleeping. They're both inactive. Everything else is active. Our consciousness is active, intellect is active. So everything is active other than the sensory faculty. Okay, when we are in dream sleep, then our body is sleeping, body is inactive, but senses are active. When we dream, we still perceive and things are happening and we see things happening. We hear sounds, we see sights and things like that. That's what dreams are made of. Dreams are made of our senses. So in dream sleep, senses are active, body is not. So here in waking state, everything is active. In dream sleep, body is inactive, everything else is. And dreamless sleep, body and senses both are inactive. Everything else is. Okay, and the contemplative state, ego also becomes inactive. We go beyond ego. And that state is not a natural state. that for that state, we have to make an effort to, okay? And that effort that we make is what yoga is, yogic contemplation is. Yogic contemplation takes us from the waking state to the contemplative state where we are only aware of our intellect and of our wisdom of the spirit, but we are not aware of the body, we are not aware of the senses, um, and we are not aware of the ego. They're all inactivated in the yogic contemplative state. And then we are in deep contemplation. And that is what our journey today will be, how we go from waking state to yogic contemplative state. I'm going to talk about uh, natural survival instincts, where they originated, because it's good to understand how important and how powerful they are in controlling our lives. And if we are in their grip, we feel divided. We feel like us versus them kind of division. That is the state of our life. So this is the first verse of the first book of the Bible, book of Genesis. In the beginning, God created heaven and the earth. Heaven is a metaphor used for mind. Earth is metaphor that's used for body. Earth is metaphor for matter, and heaven is metaphor for mind. And matter is produced after mind is produced. So the order is important. God created the heaven first and the earth later. Okay, so it may be instantaneous later, but not a lot later. So first principle is heaven, second principle is earth. Mind and matter, they go together. Mind is on the interior, matter is on the exterior. My body you can see, my mind you cannot see. What is on the surface is perceptible, what is inside is not perceptible. So they are inseparable as far as my existence is concerned, my mind and my body. My mind runs my body on the exterior. Mind on the interior runs the body on the exterior. And there is a law of conservation of matter. As long as there is matter, there is mind. Okay. A piece of rock out there has got a mind because matter of a piece of rock knows how to behave in its environment. Okay, all elements, all chemical elements know with which they can combine, how they can combine, how compounds are made from elements. It's all organized by the inside of matter. Inside of matter, what is there? It is atoms, subatomic atoms, and beyond subatomic atoms, there are quantum particles, and beyond quantum particles, there is energy. All those things that we cannot see, we are not aware of, we don't have any feeling of, that is the mind of matter. That decides how a particular piece of matter is going to behave in its environment. And when it comes to animate beings, there is obviously mind in every animate being. So mind and matter go together. All right. So here I'm talking of the journey of my mind and my matter, right from the origin of existence. This point A is the origin of existence. I'm looking at, I started to exist at that time, and my origin was from the spirit. Spirit is matter and mind, and I get a part of that from the spirit that creates me. Okay. And my first evolution from the spirit is the first single cell life form on the planet. So that is one stage of evolving from the spirit, or concretizing from the spirit, which is infinite and infinitesimal. And then the second stage is first life cell to human-like cell. And then from the first human-like cell to first cell of mind, and then from first cell of mind to my existence now with 32.2 trillion cells. So these are the four stages of my growth or my evolution from the spirit, which becomes my body and my mind. Okay, looking at science, the journey of life, I will look at a little detail of each stage. This is when I started with Big Bang. As the science says, Big Bang is from a singularity point. A point has got no dimensions. I start when that dimensionless spirit, which is infinitesimally subtle, starts to become or starts to concretize into the universe. That's when my mind and body started existing. Science says that happened 14.5 billion years ago. And then for a few billion years, there's one big melting pot. You cannot differentiate one from the other. It's a state of non-differentiation. State of non-differentiation is what is my original state. And then differentiation starts after a few billion years. And then the planet Earth appears. Okay, it took almost 10 billion years from the Big Bang to the appearance of planet Earth. And then it took 3 or 4 billion years before first life started to exist on the planet. This is first single cell life. This picture shows that started to exist 3 to 4 billion years ago. And then from that first single cell life, it originated in the oceans. So water was there before us. The earth was there before any life form appeared, because you needed water and you need the products of earth for food, sustenance of life. So before life is created, matter has to be created. And then that single cell life becomes fish, and then that lives in the ocean, and then some things, a life form that can live on the ocean and also on land, and then land life appears, and then animals appear, and then finally somebody like a human appears. Okay, and the first human-like cell appeared about 6 million years ago. Okay, that from first human-like cell, further evolution happened, and then a human being appeared, walking around with a cell phone in his hand. And that is the final stage. And then I was conceived. First cell of mine happened when I was conceived. That happened here, and that is the process through which it happens. Fertilization of the egg, and then gradually the fertile cell becomes a 6'4", 6" human being, and then it starts to reproduce, and that life cycle goes on. So from one cell to now, whatever my age is, I got now 37.2 trillion cells. Okay, cells are life forms. They divide themselves. Their continuation is through asexual multiplication. They divide themselves, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, and like that, they keep on going. Some keep on dying, and some keeps on living, and an adult human being is 37.2 trillion cells. And the mind of those cells are in the genes, and the genetic structure is all the same. All 37.2 trillion cells got the same similar set of genes, same set of genes, exactly identical. Their division is called mitosis in biology, and nothing is changed other than they divide and become many. But as they divide and become many, they have to self-organize so that they can survive, all of them. So a cell that is inside, in the center of me, how does it get the air to survive? You need, even cells need oxygen to create energy to survive. So oxygen has to be supplied, food has to be supplied. So some cells become my lung cells to supply oxygen to all the other cells in the body. Some cells become my heart cells to supply food to all cells in my body. And that self-organization, they support each other in harmony so that my life goes smoothly. That is how I work. So I have been collecting all this memory of eating, reproducing, and keeping myself safe from danger from millions of years. All right, they become my genetic memory that keeps control of my life. But before that, I was also in a state of non-differentiation, a state of oneness of the spirit. And I also have that knowledge built into my genes. But that memory is so far back, but the memory of survival and procreation and sustenance that comes and controls my life more than that oneness, memory of oneness that I was. And the survival instincts thus are so strong, they're in our genes, working unconsciously without my awareness. And their needs become prime. So they keep us in what is called sympathetic dominance. What is sympathetic dominance? In our body, we got 2 types of nerves that run our automatic system of which we are unconscious. Our unconscious life of survival is run by what is called autonomic nervous system that has got 2 branches. One is called sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. The other one is called parasympathetic. There's more activity in the sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system when our instincts are active. They want us to serve their needs right now. We cannot wait till tomorrow, right now. So we are kept in activity readiness to satisfy their demands when there's more activity in the sympathetic nervous system. And then there's a parasympathetic branch of the nervous system that you can say is when we want to rest. Its activity will slow things down. So there's a brake line and there is a gas line. You push on the gas line when you want the car to run faster. You push on the brake line when you want to run the car slower. All right. So sympathetic is the gas line. So you can say our gas line is being pushed constantly so that we are running around like crazy. Okay. So when that happens, all the automatic systems of our body, like our heart pulses very fast, our breathing is very fast, our blood is circulating in torrential mode, not smoothly, our blood pressure is high, everything like that happens. And it's the physiological survival functions that are working 24/7 under the direction of survival instincts, and that work very fast. And also there's more traffic in mind. It means our mind cannot focus. It is on one thing now, instant later is another thing, and an instant later there's another instinctive demand coming, it runs in that direction, and then another instinctive demand comes and it runs in another direction. So mind is constantly being distracted. We cannot focus on anything, we cannot learn anything, we cannot decide things because all that learning and decision making is slow. So that is what sympathetic activity does to us. And the result of it is that we are disconnected with our thinking brain. Our thinking brain is what is the executive brain. It should really run our life, our thinking brain, through which consciousness works. Thinking brain is fully conscious, whereas instinctive life is fully unconscious. Okay? The unconscious life we have no control on, whereas the thinking life, which is conscious, we have full control on. So that is why the thinking brain is called the executive brain. That can be the executive for mind, but our instincts hijack the executive brain and keep us in the slavery of survival. Instinctive experience lead to what is called emotions, anger, addiction. All those are, you can say, based upon emotion. Stress. When we can't get our way, we feel stressed. Okay, that's all the result of instinctive dissatisfaction. And we got to free our life from that. Otherwise, we will never connect with each other. We will never be happy. We will always be running around in an uncontrolled way. And our consciousness, instinctive consciousness, is on bare survival. That is the lowest part. How do I save my life? How do I sustain myself? How do I save my life? I'm in danger. So and so is killing me. I need this, I need that, and I don't have it. How can I live? Once a little bit of that is satisfied, then then I'm seeking pleasure, pleasure of the senses. Okay. And when I have that, then all my other desires, my appetites, that's where my consciousness goes. So these three are based upon what is called survival instincts. All right. And then at the heart level, we start to feel compassion. We start to feel there's another person. Okay. But that feeling comes and goes. It's not a feeling that stays. So compassion, a feeling of compassion for your fellows in your family, in your community, that is what is here. And then if the consciousness is raised higher, then you start to perceive things carefully in life. And that careful perception or observation becomes knowledge, it becomes thought, and become will. Okay. And this here is closer to the spirit than that is much, much closer to the spirit. That's where the spirit is, and up on top there is the spiritual wisdom beyond knowing, thought, and will. Because when I willingly say I want this, okay, that still is a divisive kind of a decision. When I say I'll share it with everyone, then that is spiritual wisdom. I want this because I want to share it. Okay, that is where wisdom comes in, and that is where oneness comes in. So that is the highest level of consciousness. Our level of consciousness at the bare survival, most of the time, sometimes in sensual pleasure seeking, sometimes in running after money and making sure my bank balance is high. I got only 20 pounds of this. Why can't I have a ton of that? That kind of appetite for things. And then once that is satisfied, then I start to feel compassion. And once we start to feel compassion, compassion comes and goes until it is controlled by the spirit. Then it's a permanent thing. So that's where we want to go. This is where we are normally. And yoga is supposed to take us from here to here successively in a systematic fashion. That is what this I here, you can see when my consciousness is at the heart center, I feel compassion. When it is at cognitive perception, I start to observe. When my consciousness is at the thinking level, I know and I make decisions. And when my consciousness goes above the thinking level, when the intellect is silenced, then I am in the spiritual mode. Then I see unity in diversity, then I feel unity in diversity. If I get that actual experience of unity in diversity at the state of the highest consciousness, then that changes my life and that transforms my behavior. And that is what yoga is supposed to do. Now, coming down to how practically you do it, it's a question of the sympathetic nervous system. This is physiology. Sympathetic nervous system, the activity of that needs slowing, and the activity the parasympathetic needs increasing so that they become in harmony with each other. When the activity of both those sympathetic and parasympathetic pathways are in coherence, then I'm trying to show here consciousness, it'll start to rise. So I'm going to do an animation, show equal activity of the two, and you will see consciousness rising here. It rises slowly as we keep the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system in coherence with each other. Okay, so it was here, now it is here. And that process can go on. The more I keep it, the activities of the two in coherence, the more the consciousness will rise. And I'm going to show you a situation here. They are not in coherence. The consciousness then goes down. So it is not that once arisen, consciousness will stay up. It will go up and it'll come down. And what I need to do is make an effort to develop coherence of the activities of my sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. Now again, I'm going to show, see here now, they are in sync, and it starts to rise again. And yoga is a system that will help develop coherence in the activities of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic divisions of the autonomic nervous system. They run the automatic behavior of my body and mind. When mind is an automatic behavior, it reacts. Okay, when my mind is calm, it can then think and act. So that is the difference. Reaction and thinking and acting. Thinking and acting is spiritual. Reaction is instinctive. There are two ways of getting the sympathetic and the parasympathetic divisions, the activities of them in sync with each other. One is to create mental focus, and the other is creating mental focus using the body. Okay, all our automatic systems of the body are unconscious, other than the breath that can be conscious also. We are aware, we can be aware of the breath. We breathe unconsciously 24/7, even in sleep and deep sleep, we breathing. But we can at times take charge of our breathing. When we take charge of our breathing with our thinking brain, then we can regulate our breath. And that breath regulation focuses on your mind on the breath, and that is a practical way of developing mental focus. So consciousness of breath is very much part of yoga system. So practices to raise consciousness, conscious regulation of breath disconnects survival instincts from their senses. Senses are the tools of the device in survival instincts. And Lord Buddha did the research, and he said, you breathe consciously, then you will have no mental suffering and no physical diseases. That is what his prescription was. And in the yoga system that precedes Buddha by a few thousand years, there is a system, a component of yoga called pranayama, and that essentially achieves the same thing. So if we look at yoga, we learned before that yoga is a way of going from the waking state to a contemplative state where you are in a state of one-pointed focus on something. And in waking state, everything is active. You can see the activity here as we are behaving in the external environment. And again, I'll show you how from the body I can take my consciousness in towards the spirit, okay, that if what my consciousness is located there, then I can be in one pointed focus, and that is the deepest state of contemplation. And as my consciousness goes from the external body towards the spirit, I move from the waking state to the state of contemplation, to the deepest state of contemplation. Okay, so that is what we are going to look at, 8 components of yoga. Yoga is a practical system. Okay, there are 2 preparatory components. The purpose of the preparatory components is to have some control of our, I don't know what the time situation is. I won't need too much time now.
Yeah, we're still good.
We're
still good with time. There's still at least another 10 minutes.
Thank you. So the preparatory components are called yama, social ethics, how you behave in the community. That is, you must behave in the community with a moral code consisting of 5 don'ts. No lust, no violence, no lying, no stealing, no acquisitiveness. So acquisitiveness means you won't hold. Okay, you get what you need, but you don't hold. And to be thought of, we can think of it as in more comprehensive way. And niyama as personal observances. You must have some personal discipline. Okay, 5 do's and 5 don'ts. Okay, the 5 do's, they are the personal observances like cleanliness, both inner and outer cleanliness, contentment, and life in not luxury, but austerity, austere life. Don't lead a life of luxury, but lead a life of austerity, both inner and outer austerity. And then do some self-study of knowledge that others have created and self-study of yourself so that you become self-aware so that you can regulate your life. So those are the preparatory components. And then 6 actionable components. Now, this is I don't know how clear the things are. So body and the nervous system and the lower region of the brain and the higher thinking brain. Okay, this is what neurophysiologically we are, and this is what psycho-spiritually we are. The body, the sensory faculty, ego, and the intellect. And I've expanded these 4. The body goes from there to there. The same thing with the other things. Here I've also expanded the 4 of them. When it comes to senses, this is behavior in the outer world, here in the waking state. And then in the waking state, there is also behavior from memory. We have memory of our instinctive life, or we have memory of this, that, and the other. So we are dealing with memory the same way as things are happening out in the interior world. That's what happens inside of us. And then there is running of the unconscious functions of the body. Okay, so there's unconscious and there's subconscious memory there, and there is the conscious behavior in the external world. Okay, so this is essentially what the waking state is. And neurophysiologically, is the same thing here. Body here and the nervous system here and the lower brain here, which is called the serpent brain or reptilian brain or limbic brain here. And this is the neocortex, which is the thinking brain. And then there is also a sense of I in the neuropsychology way of thinking. Okay, so this is where we start. This is the waking state. And in the waking state, when we go into contemplative, towards contemplation, then we need to sit in a posture. That posture has to be such that if you sit and contemplate for an hour, then your back will not start hurting. And when we are consciously regulating breath, our lungs and our diaphragm can move freely. So the posture is designed so that there's free movement of the lungs and the diaphragm that moves the lungs, and you're sitting in a posture that your back will not start hurting if you keep sitting there like that for an hour or two. Okay, so getting into a posture in the waking state, so everything is still active. Okay, and then the unconscious breathing is run by the brain stem. Okay, I can say to the brain stem, I'll look after the breathing. So with my thinking brain, okay, we can do that all the time. When we dive, we do that. When we sing, we do that. When we swim, we do that. And I can sit in a posture with a straight back that allows the lungs to expand and contract. Then I can regulate my breathing with my thinking brain. Okay, so here, when I regulate my breathing with the thinking mode, I also regulate my heart, and I also regulate my digestive system. I also regulate my circulation system. Everything that happens automatically is then controlled by my thinking brain, indirectly by the controlling of the breath. Okay, so from here to here, everything else is the same, except that I take charge of my breathing. This is component number 2 called pranayama, breath regulation. Objective is to reduce the activity of the mind, to control or to make the unconscious activity of breath, making it conscious. And then the next thing you have to do is pratyahara. Pratyahara means drawing the senses inwards. So when we draw the senses, inactivate the senses, I don't behave outside, so that part is gone. Okay. And then all I'm dealing with is the memory that is stored as part of my ego, experiential memory. Okay. So that experiential memory that I have to deal with here. Okay. And this is a psycho-spiritual representation, and this here is uh, neurophysiological representation of the same thing. And then the next is dharana. What happens is when I withdraw the senses, make the senses inactive and the body inactive, body and senses are inactive, uh, then I narrow the movement of my mind to uncontrolled state, to a controlled state. I may think of object one, object two, or object three, or object four, but not uncontrolled multiplicity of objects. Okay, that is this state. And then out of a specific number of objects, I choose one object. That is then called paying attention to one object only, not from a specific number of objects as it was in the previous state. So that is dhyana in Sanskrit, and in English, you'll be paying attention to one object only. Okay? And then what happens when I start paying to one object, my mind may still get distracted to object two and object three, but that distraction is very slight. And then if I keep on focusing on one object, I'll forget about other objects totally, and then I'll be focused on that object only and without any distraction. Okay, that's what happens in the state of samadhi. And that state of samadhi has got different states. I'm focusing on this object only, but that object is still colored by my ego, by my mind, by my herd identity. That colors the way I perceive. Okay, then the next state is to filter my subjectivity from it. Forget about ego also. Put the ego to sleep. Okay, and then that activity here disappears. I am totally one with the object in which, with my thinking ability, with my thought process, and that is, then I see the objective reality of that one particular object. Okay, and in the next state, when I keep observing that one particular object in its different details, and I have explored all details, then if I continue, then even that object will disappear because there's nothing further to explore. Okay, that is what is the ultimate state of contemplation. In that state, we are totally, my thinking brain is totally in touch, being enlightened by the Spirit. So there, I have no other activity other than being one with the Spirit. Mind you, my thinking brain is what I think I am, and this is what my reality is, the Spirit. So I'm one with God, you can say, in this state of contemplation. That's what yoga does to us. And what are the requirements of successful yogic contemplation? Requirements are regularity and persistence of practice. You practice yogic contemplation every day and you persist in it. And it has to be done free of any hidden agendas. Okay, I have to go beyond the conditioning of my mind not with anything to prove, but with an open mind and see the reality as it is. Okay? Then what are the basic things that happen in this process that transforms me? Okay? The experience of life without survival instincts. I'm totally out of touch with survival instincts that are built into me when I was born. They are not distracting me, they are not controlling me. I have controlled them. I don't have any sense of them. When senses disappear and ego disappears, they disappear along with uh, senses and the ego that are their tools and their brainchild. Uh, I develop one pointed focus on whatever the purpose of my life is. Okay? I consciously regulate breath. And when I consciously regulate breath, indirectly I'm regulating the way my heart beats, my blood pressure works, and my blood circulates, and how my digestive system is working. I'm consciously regulating the working of all my bodily systems. And I'm making the unconscious conscious. While I do the regulation of breath, that's an unconscious activity normally. I make it consciously. And indirectly, then I make all the unconscious activities of the body and mind as conscious activities. And I feel blissful and happy and satisfied when my purpose of life is achieved. And that is what yoga is meant for, achieving the purpose of your life. And one of the purposes of life is health and wellness. It achieves that. Okay, what are the characteristics, practical things that happen to me? I remediate instinctive divisiveness. I feel more connected with existence, all of existence. Sense of unity gets promoted in me automatically. I become peaceful. I become in harmony with everybody. I learn how to regulate my life, self-regulation, towards achievement of a purpose. And my body, physical and mental stability and poise gets much, much better. I develop emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, mental and physical health is improved. I learn very easily, my learning ability increased, and I become coherent, disciplined, and purposeful life of peace and harmony. And I thank you very much for listening to me. My concluding remarks are coherent approach to unity and peace with a problem-solving scientific approach to life or purpose is what yoga is. And that's where it gets us, provided you make the effort. You have to make the effort persistently and regularly. We must create a culture of yoga, of regular practice to create and keep peace. If you don't have that practice of yoga, then peace will not be lasting. And what we are doing is calling for re-envisioning a redesign of education to create the desired culture. So after the 3-day peace weekend, the following weekends, we start our conference that will go on for 4 weekends. The details are there on the screen. I'll leave it there. And we'll work on one topic, and that is envision the future of education, teaching unity and diversity. We are working on a proposal we will be considering in those 4 days. I thank you so very much for your patient listening to my diatribe.
Thank you, Shiv. That was an amazing presentation. And thank you for your patience through these little technical difficulties, but we managed. Thank you, ladies, for joining. Do you have any questions for Shiv? No?
If you're interested in our conference, you go to this website. It's spiritualeducation.org, O-R-G. Spiritual education is one word. And when you hit the register button there on the homepage of this website, you'll be taken to Zoom, and they'll ask your email address and name, and you will be registered. They'll give you a link to join the conference.
Beautiful. I've just put that in a chat. So specialeducation.org.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we will conclude this session. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great day, everyone.
Questions, please.
Yes, Shiv, perhaps you want to put your email address in the chat as well. If ladies do have any questions, or
you can please get in touch with me. Where is the chat thing? Oh, I have to stop sharing screen before I can access chat. My email address is info@spiritualeducation.org. info@spiritualeducation.org. My eyesight is not very good. If I make a mistake, info@spiritualeducation is one word. .org.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you, Irina.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha in Stockholm. And thank you, Kay Blackwelder.
Blackwelder. Thank you.